Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar where we'll discuss what's next for property tax professionals. My name is Jasmine O'Cutesy, and I'll be your host today. If this is your first time, welcome, and if you've joined us before, welcome back. I'll review a couple quick notes before we dive in. Friendly reminder that today's discussion is for informational purposes only and is not legal or tax advice. And on your screen is our safe harbor policy, so please take a moment to review. We're recording today's event, so if you want to listen again or share it with a colleague, you'll receive a link to the recording via email within the next 24 hours. The platform you're looking at can be customized, so feel free to move or resize the windows. And the additional resource section contains a slide deck and other related links. There are several ways to engage with presenters and fellow attendees today, so please submit any questions you have for the speakers in the Ask the Questions box, and we'll be sure to get to those at the end of the webinar during the Q&A segment. You can also network with your fellow attendees today by using the attendee chat feature on your screen. We are offering 1 CPE credit for today's presentation. So for those looking to receive credit today, please note that you'll need to respond to at least 3 poll questions and be present for at least 50 minutes. Once you have met those requirements, your certificate will be available to download right here in the Earn Certification box on your screen. But you can also access your certificate afterwards by logging back into this console to download from there. So let's meet today's presenters. We are joined today by 3 Avalara experts. So I'll pass it over to you 3 for some quick intros, and then feel free to take it away for today's discussion.
Hey, thanks, Jasmine. I am Carl Hemke. I'm the General Manager of Property Tax for Avalara. I come with over 30 years experience in property tax. I'm also an appraiser, so I'm a certified appraiser. Spent many years in developing software applications as well. So look forward to speaking with you guys.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Melissa Shad. I'm a Senior Product Solutions Engineer with Avalara with property tax and business licenses. And I've spent the last 23 years working with property tax technology solutions, professional services, implementation training, and now sales support.
And good morning as well. My name is Ian McPike. I'm a property tax implementation specialist, but over the last 25 years, I've spent primarily focused on compliance and consulting on the public accounting side. And I just joined Avalara a month ago. So excited to be part of the team.
Thanks, Ian. Boy, I count 70 years of experience here. So, so either we're old or we've been around property tax for a while. But we'd love to talk to you about kind of these next 6 items, or well, 5, and then we'll have some Q&A at the end. But we'll talk about what's next now that the filing season's over, and where we're at in the property tax cycle. It's a year-long thing, and then where property tax programs break, and what modern leaders are doing differently, and kind of how to prepare for the remaining 2026 as well as 2027, and then we'll end with some Q&A. So let's kind of kick into I guess our first polling slide, Jasmine.
Yes, hopping right back in. And so you'll see on your screen, the poll will appear as a pop-up. So feel free to move or resize the windows if you can't see the pop-up on your screen now. But our first question for the audience is, how happy were you with your property tax returns filing process this year? And then the selections are just from A to D, very satisfied to need a solution for next year. So we'll give everybody a couple more seconds to choose an option. And as a reminder, for CPE credit today, we'll need to answer at least 3 polls, and we'll have 4 total for everybody today, all throughout the webinar. So I'll go ahead and launch the results here and give our presenters an idea of, what our audience is feeling today. I'll pass it on back over to Carl.
Very good. Well, I take a look at these results, and I'm like, 3 cheers for those that are very satisfied. You guys have got it figured out. I'm one that is never satisfied, so I'm always trying to improve some things, but looks like over half the audience is at least satisfied or very satisfied. So maybe we've got some things to learn from you guys. But so let's talk about kind of where we're at in the cycle right now. Right now you're probably, either mostly done or you're, because you're on this webinar, maybe you are done, but some of those are still filing for California, which is due tomorrow. And so trying to beat that 10% penalty. But now that the rush is to really plan for those notices that are beginning to come in. But Melissa, what's your thoughts?
Well, what I see a lot of at this time of year is everybody's kind of lifting their heads back up, breathing. And my email box, my text, even sometimes my Facebook Messenger is people contacting me saying, hey, we need to talk. And some of it is, advice. Sometimes it's, this is not what went well, or these are some things we're thinking about. Do you guys have any, suggestions, solutions? But now is really a good time because anything that didn't go well is fresh on your mind. And now is the best time to start thinking about how to improve it for next filing season and for the rest of this year. Because as you know, the clock runs out quickly and all of a sudden we're knee deep in next year's filing season.
Great, thanks, Melissa. So tell us, we did a poll recently. Tell us about that poll, Melissa.
Yeah, so we polled a lot of people and we polled leaders. And I like that word because it's a good word, but it's also sometimes misleading because sometimes leadership is very, very finger on the button of what's going on with their teams. Sometimes they think everything's going great and their teams are like, hi, have you met us before? So, it's very sometimes different at the hands-on level than the leadership level at some organizations. So there's just, some things to think about with that. But almost everyone that was polled agreed that property tax is a very complex, animal, and that it is very challenging to do that across an organization. A lot of those leaders also said they are totally 100% confident that their organizations are fully in compliance. And, that's great if they feel that way, and it's great if that's the case, but what we see isn't always exactly what they see here. So some things that I certainly talk to people about, and I will, not name names, but penalties. So I've talked to a consulting firm that paid $30,000 in bill penalties because bills got sent one day late. So, leadership may or may not have known about that, but that's a lot of money to spend on one client whose bills were late. People overpaying due to errors. Some people in a manufacturing company were at a conference, didn't realize that they have these huge machines which are run by software, but there's machinery parts. But if you separate out the software depreciates a lot faster than the rest of the machine. So there's a lot of savings because they hadn't really reported those software and computer components. They reported it all in the machinery and equipment bucket. So that was a lot of money that they figured out that they had overpaid because they didn't classify correctly. Resources. I don't know about any of you, but nobody I'm talking to is saying that they're overstaffed and everybody is, just has nothing to do. And additionally, there's a lot of people that are hiring folks that just, they don't have a lot of property tax experience. It's a very niche, kind of a market. And so, without really great tools or without really great mentorship, firms are struggling, and so are companies, to find and keep tax professionals. Everybody's complaining that they have more work to do with less resources and not always great automation. Operational disruption. When you have, appeals going on, potentially liens happening. Talked to one telecom tax director who, was saying that he literally was talking to lawyers on Christmas morning because of a huge appeal that was being filed. That paperwork had to be filed. Obviously very disruptive for his life. And then appeal opportunities, missing those appeal deadlines, which are obviously what's coming up next. There was a large leasing company that realized that assessors were still assessing them for disposals they had reported, but none of them had paid attention to the appeal deadlines. And so they ended up being overbilled by a significant amount of money in a variety of jurisdictions because they just hadn't paid attention. So I think those things are some real life scenarios that, people aren't always, running up the flagpole to their boss or to their VPs necessarily. So this is really the moment that you guys have an opportunity out there to really think through what could go better, what could, be more effective. So I'm going to turn this over to Ian now to talk a little bit more about the cycle.
Yeah, definitely. And before I jump into, discussing the cycle of the property tax compliance year, just to reiterate what you were saying, Melissa, is that, a lot of disruption can occur when you don't meet filing deadlines or late on your payments. Back, some time ago, I remember businesses being padlocked, right, by the sheriff and things of that nature, which completely disrupts the business for a day, a week, however long it is until they're able to resolve whatever issue is at hand. So what you're looking at right now is, a general diagram of our property tax cycle. You live this year in and year out. Obviously, the start point is different on certain states, depending on, your assessment dates and kind of your filing requirements. But right now, California, your extension, is available till tomorrow. Indiana and Kentucky are a week away. So right now you may say we're not yet fully into our, valuation focus, but, you're still a little bit into that filing cycle. But this is where it's important, right? To really understand where you are in the cycle, plan for, the next upcoming months, ensure that, everything that you have is organized and structured to where once the notices come in, you're able to react because, your filing only protects you from late filing penalties and things of that nature. It's truly the valuation and the appeal cycle piece of this where the value is, right? So once again, just want to state while you're filing, is part of the, your job and part of the prospect, but it's really your value. You need to understand, the timing of it, when it's received. We all work within property tax compliance, so we've seen, we work within snail mail. It's paper and paper heavy. It's very paper dependent from receiving the notices and the bills, and so it's critical to ensure that what the jurisdiction is returning to you is based on your filing. So you don't lose track of that opportunity to either appeal a value or to, act proactively instead of reactively. So a lot of times this is the part where companies can leave value and savings on the table. And so we just want to make sure that you are prepared for that. And so you'll see that, there's a 2020 or 2026 survey of over 1,000 finance, tax, fixed asset, and IT leaders that Avalara conducted. And 44% indicated that they had missed savings they were entitled to. 52% paid some sort of interest, either for late filing or, something other. And then 46 incurred additional penalties. So a total of only 3% of the overall base that was surveyed escaped all three of these categories. So once again, it's crucial to ensure that you're ready to receive the values, that you're ready to react, that you have the supporting documentation available to move into this next part of the cycle. And so I believe with this, I'll move back to Carl.
Perfect, Ian. So thanks. So I guess what we're hearing is really a reactive approach doesn't scale when you have hundreds of locations, right? You got these tight timelines, which forces you into making shortcuts, which then those shortcuts translate into hastily putting together an appeal package and you lose the appeal. And so that's, as Ian was saying, that's where the value is in this process. If you really can create more time and have your system together to really process those appeals systematically. So how do you do that? What is a way to develop a systemized process? Well, here's kind of 5 kind of key areas that you can focus on. But one is like to really start with a review of your entire process, map what your team does today, find out what can be standardized. You know, if you see the same steps, same criteria, every parcel, every cycle, that's a key to something that can be standardized. Also having kind of data-backed validation checks. And so if you think about if you had data at your fingertips, you can really make some really quick decisions. And so standardized data lets you put real data behind decisions. You can quickly stress test assessor values, because if you've got your own cost trends, you've got your own useful life assumptions, you've got your own market evidence, then it's a much more effective way to quickly make decisions around valuations. Valuations is not a gut feel; it's a really evidence-based process. Additionally, having kind of a well-documented audit trail. So a repeatable process documents itself. You build the audit trail as you go, not after the fact, is really kind of key. And this organization of the process makes it much easier when an appeal gets challenged, or if you need context for the next year cycle, it's all right there and easy to remember. And so you don't have to kind of reconstruct how you've built it from memory. It's in the system and it's ready for your review next year or at a time of an appeal. And so this gives you really that incremental time that's necessary to identify appeal opportunities so you can catch them, and while there's still time to act, and not a week before the deadline, or quite frankly, I've seen hours before the deadline, you just have to hastily bulk appeal everything because you don't have time to get it done. But early visibility into these opportunities gives you time to strategize without scrambling. You can pull comps, you can line up your experts, you can pick your battles. And so that's essentially how we think about getting ready for kind of a systematic approach as opposed to a reactive approach. But let's talk about kind of where models currently break. And Melissa, you want to take us through that process?
Yeah, because I hear about this every day when I'm on calls with customers or with people that are interested in becoming customers. So we have, kind of a 3-4 groups. One is fully manual, where they're working completely off of spreadsheets. I've spoken to people who say, I call our location and ask them to put everything that's in their location on a spreadsheet and kind of ballpark when they think we bought it and how much we think we paid for it, because they don't even really have a fixed asset process or procurement process in place. And of course, that's very time consuming, and there's a lot of room for error there. And it's just, it's exhausting going onto the websites, pulling the forms, either keying into PDFs or handwriting data, trying to figure out calculations themselves in spreadsheets. Then we also have folks who have a software system that either they've purchased or has been natively developed internally that does the job. And what I hear most from those people is either it doesn't do what they need it to do as well, as quickly, as accurately as they want it to do, or they're completely unaware of some of the features that they have or other types of things that they have in their organization. And I always recommend to people that they sort of like check in with IT every now and then, because there are things that can be automated that a lot of us simply don't know. I don't know everything out there that can be connected and automated and things like that. So I always think it's a good idea, because remember, many of us step into systems that have already been set up, that people teach us how to do it because they were taught by somebody, everybody's lost the plot of how the software actually works or what it could do. And, they're just missing a lot of opportunities, and it's not being brought to their attention. What are all the new features? What are all the new things? What are the most up-to-date things that could be happening? And then some people are like, just take this away. Let's outsource it to a third party. And Some third parties are wonderful at providing information, at being very transparent. I'm hearing from people that they are not getting the transparency that they always need from the firms that they're working with, or they have more junior people working on their accounts and they just simply don't have the information. And now they're feeling a little bit like, is this really a credible organization that I'm working with? So those are some options and some of the concerns that people are having. And then some people have a hybrid model of this where they do some of their own returns, but they outsource, or they do their own bills, but they outsource the returns. So there's a variety of ways that people are sort of juggling it, but it's hard to feel like you have a really holistic, real-time, up-to-date process, visibility, transparency, and like Carl said, the ability to make those good decisions backed by data. So step one, manual property. It's very high risk scale, but there's still a lot of us that are doing manual or semi-manual processes. We talked about spreadsheets, paper heavy workflows, looking up documents or scanning them into a SharePoint site and trying to find the right folder, pulling forms from different jurisdictions, hoping you've gotten the right jurisdiction when you looked up where your property might be. Deadlines, people are putting things, in Outlook if they're doing things manually or they have a doc or something, but it's very easy to slip things, or somebody unexpectedly gets sick and nobody else even knew that there was a deadline. So there's high potential for human error there with that kind of a process, obviously. And then there's a variety of limitations of existing systems. And I mentioned lack of internal training and onboarding. How many of us have come into a company and they're like, well, we've always done it this way, or, well, we've been doing that for a long time, and that may be the best way to do it. It may not. It may be that nobody tried to visit a better way, or so-and-so in AP just won't accept not a flat file or some crazy thing like that. That's completely blocking you from, being more accurate, being more efficient. So there's also some performance and security concerns. IT is obviously very concerned about data, hacking, any of that. None of us want to lose our data. So that's a big issue for people. Difficult to scale because of manual workflows and tasks. So when you have a merger, an acquisition, you're opening, 10 new locations, dropping all of that in can be a really big burden because a lot of times the workflows and the tasks are being done manually and then potentially backfilled into the existing software system. Because I hear a lot too, sometimes it's easier to do it outside, or we've had to build something to connect to this because it doesn't do what we need it to do, which is, where you have a car, but you're hitching it up to a horse to pull it along because the engine doesn't go. So there's also strains on resources, staffing changes. We've all lost somebody in our organization that knew everything. That is terrifying. That is a horrible, horrible situation where everybody else is just scrambling, to figure out what to do. And then the other piece is, we've all also had a situation where, well, does the software do this? Well, yeah, if you add on this module, or yeah, if you buy this extra subscription, or, whatever that might be. So it's not really fully transparent. And then our pricing is, increasing and increasing to where do we just hire someone else or do we continue to pay these extra fees? Also, with IT involvement, most of us do not want IT to have to be involved in updates or installs or anything like that. So those are all things that kind of can create problems and may have created problems during your filing season, and certainly aren't going to do you any favors in terms of saving money and making sure things are getting done on time. Carl, did you have anything that you wanted to touch on this?
No, I think you covered it really well, Melissa. So.
All right. I want to discuss outsourcing without visibility. So you'll see on the slide, 15% of the leaders who we surveyed, on our Avalara survey, called out limited visibility as one of their top concerns. So many of you who may already outsource some or a portion of your property tax work, that may be a concern of yours. While, you have trust in your providers, sometimes having the information right at your hands isn't readily available. And so, the gaps that we see tend to be, limited real-time visibility. So, do you have access to your assets? Do you have access to reports? Do you have access to systems? Delayed reporting cycles. Are you finding that, where you would expect to have, your notice or appeal, you may not have that information provided to you until weeks later, when, the outsource provider gets back to you a response to an email. Are your, appeals, are they proactive? Are your, providers providing you reports, identifying the various properties in which you appeal, or does it seem to be reactive? Do you have a lot of just protective appeals that you filed just to ensure, wait until you have the supporting documentation data available to determine whether it's a possible appeal on your property? So, along with lack of structured data, can you analyze how your property is being valued across jurisdictions, et cetera? These are all concerns that we understand that happen throughout not only the filing season, but also the appeal process. And so, we really want you to ask, how likely is it that you'll receive or see the assessment the day of that it arrives? And just based on mail and the processes involved, the volume of mail that you may get within a day, it could take, a few days before you actually see a report with that value. Is the structured supporting data available when you're looking at properties to appeal, or do you have to go create and recreate the wheel, if you will, based on filings? So, and then the last piece, do you have time to model what the true impact is of appealing a property, or are you just filing it and then determining that after the fact? So, these are concerns and things that we've seen throughout the industry as to, while outsourcing, may work well, for your requirements, are you truly seeing, or do you have the visibility of data and reporting within the process? And so, Carl, do you want to?
Sure. So
discuss.
Really, as you think about it, what do models lack? And so, which comes back with a response from the survey that says that 95% says modernization is a priority. So, what you want is really a system that is one system that has everything that is accessible from anywhere. It's effortless to update and maintain. It allows you to import data in minutes, not hours. It's scalable with the growth of your business. But I think that's what 95% of the people are saying, and why it's a priority. That they want those types of aspects for a system. So let's get into that a little bit more as we think about the modernization of a system. But as we think about it, it's really four pillars that we focus on: automation, centralization, mitigation, and accounting. And so within automation, it's kind of the foundation of the entire system, where we believe an AI system, AI-driven system, because it has a data layer, keeps your assets, parcels, and due dates currently all automatically. Thousands of jurisdictions, everyone has its own due date and calendar. If your team is still chasing data in spreadsheets, you're layering in sophistication on top of a very fragile foundation. And so that's where you need kind of all of that structured and automated. Centralized, it sits on top of governance, documents, deadlines, and all reports in one place. And so, You don't want to go to multiple systems, multiple spreadsheets, but working from one source of truth means that you're not having to reconcile 4 versions of the same parcel that you may have in four different systems. And then finally, mitigation that turns the foundation of this whole strategy into dollars, where structured appeals and assessment strategy, where you're systematic instead of reactive. And so your team is actually negotiating from evidence rather than urgency. And that's really the key. And then finally, accounting kind of closes that loop where accruals and budgets and cash forecasts are all connected to everything that's occurred during the year. And so it's what's actually happening in your assessments, as opposed to, oh, this is what we paid last year times some number, some growth rate. So 4 pillars, 1 roof. The companies winning at property tax today are treating it all as one connective system, not 4 individual siloed problems. So this is what modernization looks like as a product. Again, the foundation is AI, intelligent document processing. It all starts with, Ian talked about it being a very heavy papered process. And so it starts with intelligent document processing, extracting and standardizing that data with very, very high accuracy, because you get a date wrong, you get an amount wrong, and you're penalized. And so not only high accuracy, but also minimal review. So you want that automation to extract at high accuracy, but not leaving you with having to review everything, but essentially review just the exceptions. So this allows data, once it's nice and pristine, to import and validate in minutes. And so that means returns, notices, tax bills, all of which can be flagged in the system, or rather the exceptions can be flagged. And so those are the ones that kind of need a human eye, but you want to minimize those exceptions as much as possible. So advanced due date tracking knows the calendar, every jurisdiction that you're in. AI tooling affords you the opportunity to proactively analyze assessments, not after a deadline has passed, but actually way before. Having updates and real-time visibility where cloud-based dashboards can show assessment statuses, deadlines, and exposure across every jurisdiction. So you got full visibility, whether you run it yourself or lean on a managed services. And then finally, and behind the software is an in-house property tax expertise. And so what you want is not just software that's been developed by engineers, but someone that has that experience, that is people that have worked on appeals, written the protest, sat across from assessors, and really something that depth shows up in the product. And so in support and also in our managed services tier, that's the type of people that we have in our team. So we pair it together with a seamless implementation. This gets into some of the pricing of the flexibility of our system, but it's also tailored to specifically how your team works. And so giving you speed, visibility, expertise all in one, delivered as a system before delivered as a system that gets better the longer you use it, is what I'm trying to say. So Jasmine, you've got another poll question for us.
I do, yes, perfect timing. So for the audience, this is our second poll question for today. And so you should see that pop up on your screen right now. And our question is, which best describes your current model? Is it fully manual, internal software solution, managed by a third party, hybrid, or unsure? And you can select multiple here. So feel free to take some time to submit your answers here. And also, if you haven't submitted a question for the presenters today, you can do so towards the top of your screen in the Ask a Questions feature, and we'll be sure to get those responses for you later in the webinar. And so I'm going to go ahead and push the poll results here. All right, and then back over to the team to discuss.
Well, that's interesting. So a third of you approximately is a fully manual solution. So it tends to be fully manual when you have few properties, but if you're fully manual and you have a lot of properties, that gets to be, you're hearing this complexity term that we keep throwing around. interesting that some of you have an internal software solution. And that's, I tend to see that when you have a very kind of unique situation and you don't feel like the software is really effectively providing you the solution that you need, so you develop your own. The challenge is that you have to manage that. And then the final, in the third position here is 15% of you completely outsourced it. It's like, hey, this is too complex. I don't want to mess with it. I want somebody else to handle it. And or finally, a third of you is in a hybrid. So it's interesting results there. So let's continue to talk about the modern property tax model. Getting back to that survey that Melissa talked about, we surveyed 1,000 finance, tax, and fixed asset IT leaders across many different enterprises. And we asked them a simple question. When you think about your top concern in tax compliance, what comes to mind? And so really these three things came to the top. 22% named data management, getting clean data, accurate, current data into the system that they need. 18% said these laws keep changing. It's regulatory change, and so staying at the top of rules that move faster than teams can track. And then 15% said, look, I don't have much visibility across jurisdictions. I need everything in all one place, and so I can see what's happening across the footprint. So in these three categories, something kind of comes out of it, and that is that data management is a data problem. Visibility across jurisdictions is the data problem, and regulatory change, if you think about it carefully, it's also a data problem. And so knowing what has changed, where and when, is a fundamental question of whether your information is current and trustworthy. So when we add all these up, more than half of what keeps these leaders up at night sits in one bucket: data and visibility. And that's what really matters. What we're hearing is that we need a faster tool, we need a better calculator. What we're hearing is a request for really a different posture entirely. And so a shift from being a reactive compliance organization or company to where you're having to hastily file appeals because you don't have enough time and it's limited and you're scrambling before a deadline, to actually you want proactive control where you can see what's coming and you can act on it before it becomes a problem. That's not a technology upgrade. That's really an operational model change. And that's the conversation we're having today. So let's talk about, everybody throws around AI. So why does AI really matter? And just importantly, what it doesn't replace. And so the pain is real, with all these different jurisdictions and complexities. Many property tax platforms struggle during the compliance season. You start really loading them up with data, and so they start slowing down when you have large data sets. You're having to do a lot of manual review, and then the bottlenecks of machine crashes, or it's just not running as fast. It really decisions are deferred because the data wasn't ready. And so we talked about these tight timelines. If you live through it, you know it. And the clock doesn't care whether import took 6 hours or whether it took 6 minutes. But that deadline doesn't move for you. And so modern AI kind of collapses that timeline and really kind of accelerates how quickly you can do things. Bills and notices are extracted, standardized, validated, and imported in minutes as opposed to days. Any anomalies are flagged automatically. Appeal opportunities surface proactively. The review shifts from look at everything to look at only the exceptions, because AI has kind of called out those exceptions for you, which is quite frankly the only way that you could scale when you're managing thousands of parcels across hundreds of jurisdictions. So here's the part where I want you to hear clearly is that AI is not replacing the tax professional. Experts need to be still in the loop. And so, you've heard the term maybe human in the loop, but you need that subject matter expertise in the loop. That's really not a limitation. That's a feature of this whole process. And so think about what's actually at stake when you create an appeal. It's like, what's the proper cap rate? or is my assessment uniform? Is it, what's the proper useful life? That the assessor may say one thing, but it's, my assets don't last that long. Is the trend that they're using, is that defensible to really what's happening with the cost of my assets? Is there obsolescence? Is there intangibles? Is there a recent jurisdictional precedent that I need to take into account? And plus, experts are like, hey, I can read the room across the table from assessor. I can see the expression on their face, and I can understand whether an argument is sticking or not. So none of these are AI decisions. They're kind of human judgment, and quite frankly, none of them should be. So what AI does is take all that manual labor off your plate, all the data entry, document parsing, cross-checking, so you can spend all your time on the work that requires an ASA, an appraiser, a CMI, or 20 years of property tax experience. The AI surface really surfaces what matters, and so your experts decide what to do about it. Every decision is documented, defensible, and auditable. That's the equation: speed plus intelligence plus expertise. So this speed and intelligence comes from a platform, and expertise comes from the people. That's the combination, and only that combination is the competitive advantage in property tax. So Melissa, tell us more about the other applications and other processes. Are you there, Melissa?
Yeah. So for a lot of you who had mentioned that you were manual, to those who were outsourcing and also using internal tools, we have a variety of options that use all of the tools that Carl's been talking about. So Property Tax Returns Pro, Property Tax or generally Enterprise, but it's very flexible. And then Managed Property Tax for those hybriding, or those who want to kind of take it off their plate, maybe bring it back. Those are some different things that we have available. So one thing that a lot of people don't know is that we have lots of customers who are on our Property Tax Returns Pro. And these are often people that are currently manual and have those smaller numbers of properties. Maybe you have 10, 20, 30, 40 returns that, maybe you're not justified in buying a whole big enterprise system, but you really don't want to do it all manually, and you want to take advantage of this automation and all of the data that is, available. So this is an option because it really does, it's self-implementing. That's how easy it is. And it allows you to bring your data in and then really just generate returns with almost no property tax knowledge or no property tax knowledge. I've had people who are like, I just got saddled with this. I have to do 30 returns. I don't even know where to get these forms. And within a week, they generated all of their forms. And it was super easy. And they were thrilled because they didn't have to learn property tax as another facet of their job. Our Avalara property tax system, if you take a look at what our dashboard looks like, it is the most user-friendly thing you can imagine. As Carl mentioned, all of those jurisdictional deadlines, the workflows, the different jurisdictional dates, everything you need to do and everything you have done is right here at your fingertips. And accessing the pieces of the system to do the tasks you want to do is very, very simple. And it allows you to, again, ramp up very quickly and then scale for large amounts of data.
And then finally, I'll talk about kind of the Avalara managed property tax, and we kind of hear, from customers that say, look, this is way too complex. Can you just do it for me? And this is why we launched the Avalara managed property tax. And we also hear from customers that says, I can do so much, but I need really kind of additional support to really complete the rest of the properties that I have. And so that's some of the poll questions that we had where people are using hybrid. So it's managed services not for people that just want better software. They really want experts running the work alongside them. And so across the bottom slide, you can kind of see 6 places where property tax breaks down as to why you need kind of this managed services. But one is inaccurate asset valuation, and that the compliance burden itself, to missed deadlines, to inconsistent treatment across jurisdictions, kind of disorganized asset tracking, and then audit exposure. Those are kind of the complexities that create a need for someone where I just need help to get it done. And so everyone is a place where overpayment, penalty, and risks can show up. There's so many kind of gotchas in property tax that it's penalties every corner that you turn. So you want a dedicated specialist on your side to help you change the outcome, so you don't have these challenges that you run into. And our managed services team is really an extension of yours. They've worked on appeals, written protests, sat across from assessors. They've got the depth of expertise that what you need to get your filings done. It's not just generic SaaS support reading from a script. It's actual experts that are assisting you with the work. The two things to really underscore here is that our technology enhances the expertise. It doesn't replace it. So we do it a bit differently, where we provide the software and you have access to the software. You see everything that we're doing. You get full visibility. You get real-time reporting, kind of a centralized control, complete transparency into your data, workflows, and filings. And you always know what's happening. And so you don't have to guess what's happening or wait for the next email to understand that. You can actually go into the system and see it. This is flexible as well. Some clients want full service end to end, and others want kind of specific pieces that they want done, or maybe just the data extraction or the due date tracking or appeals management. We can tailor all of that to whatever your needs are, whatever your gaps are in your organization. And so the result is exactly what you see on this slide. You get accurate valuations, you get freed up internal teams, deadlines met, consistent treatment across your footprint, organized records, confident audit results, and kind of expert-driven compliance, less internal burden, and really giving you complete control. So what are the ROIs on managed services? But it's really kind of 8 levers that we think about, but you can think about them in more collectively 3 ways. But that's direct cost reduction, accuracy and expertise, and then scale and efficiency. So in the direct cost reduction, you're not hiring or backfilling property tax specialists in every market. You're leveraging ours. And so you can layer in cost avoidance from non-compliance to put this in your ROI calculation, right? So it's non-compliance penalties to overpayments that you don't have time to get those appeals done, but they don't show up in a budget line until they hit. So plus the opportunity cost of every hour your tax team spends on data entry is an hour not spent in maybe other strategic work that you have in your organization. So that really 3 different ways where the engagement pays for itself. The other is accuracy and expertise, where property tax is jurisdictional. Maintaining specialized knowledge across every county you operate in is expensive and can be brittle. With managed services, you're getting a depth as a service. You're specialists with jurisdiction-specific expertise, non-generalist readings from checklists, but really kind of errors go down, missed filings go down, and defensibility goes up. And that's where the savings really comes from, that accuracy and expertise. And then finally, scale and efficiency. So if your business is growing, you really need the ability to scale and be efficient with that scale. So that's where the ROI kind of compounds over time. And this automation that we've talked about kind of eliminates a lot of the manual workflows your team has been carrying, giving you visibility, reporting, give finance and tax leadership the real time and insights that they need for those budgets and accruals, and really creating scalability. Whether you're entering new markets, you've acquired other companies, your compliance footprint kind of scales with you. So there's no strain on the system. You don't have to scramble to hire, no learning curves in jurisdictions you've never operated in, but managed services really kind of pays back in hard dollars and reduced risk and capacity to grow. And these 3 ROI stories for 3 different stakeholders at the table: finance, tax, and the executives setting strategy. So let's go into the why and now for implementation. Ian, you want to take us into implementation?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Carl. Yeah. So why now is the moment? So I'll point out the two numbers that are on the slide, and I think they pretty much tell the whole story. 95% of finance, tax, and IT leaders say modernizing their property tax function is a priority within the next 12 to 24 months. So, these decisions don't just impact or include the tax department. They also include the CFOs and, the chief information officers and upwards. So, it's critical to have all the individuals who, make the decisions on modernization at the table when discussing, these next steps. So, also 94% say the complexity within the compliance is really impacting their strategic decisions down the road for their company. So it's crucial, once again, just to have all the decision makers there. We believe that the market's already made the decision to modernize. It's just when and with whom. And so why the reason now matters specifically is that, property tax runs on a calendar, as, to allude back to the cycle, the illustration of the property tax cycle. And so if you wait 6 months to start from this point, you are back into your filing season. And so it's critical to really decide and make the decisions now because you don't want to, make that decision at the worst time when, your resources and people and your tax department are focused on the filing process and not how to improve the process. So, you may ask, okay, if we decide to modernize now, what's that look like? And so, what does an Avalara transition look like? And so, that's a component that I've been heavily involved in. And so, in the Avalara property tax transition or implementation, we have a proven 5-stage implementation process, and it's aligned with your calendar. So we just want to ensure that, you're still able to, work through this property tax cycle and not be impacted. And so, it's really important. Stage 1 is a kickoff. Obviously, setting up our internal readiness assessment, scheduling a kickoff call to go through your data and the process, the upcoming, stages that we'll walk through. We want to lock in the overall scope of any work that we've been engaged and also provide a timeline. And so, we do that right off the start, and then we put on weekly status meetings to ensure that we're meeting those deadlines. In stage 2, we have our application set up. So depending on what you've engaged for, what services, it may include setting up the Avalara property tax system or Metatasker if you've also included that environment into your service. We create all the profiles and permissions within the environments and then configure our single sign-on login for everyone to access the environment and navigate while we go through the implementation. Stage 3 is a data migration. So we do use AI tools and assisted templates for importing data into our system. And so we primarily focus at the organizational level, which includes clients, legal entities, properties, and then fixed assets along with accounts. So assessor, collector accounts all get mapped and placed into the system. And then The one thing that we like to highlight is that during our stage 4, we provide the module training. Sometimes in an implementation, they may work on the data, and then once that's finalized, then you have the training. But we are well prepared or well resourced to be able to show and provide that training while the data is being placed into the system. So once again, you have navigation capabilities along with our training side by side throughout this process. And then the final stage is our closeout. So then we'll just wrap up our account, roll forward any data for the upcoming year, and then make a clean internal handoff to our support team. And by that point, you should be set up and ready to attack the upcoming filing season.
Perfect. Thank you.
Carl,
I'll take it from here. No, I appreciate it. I think, Ian, what our strategy always is to really make that onboarding frictionless, right? And make it easy, make it that transition a simple switch. And we're continually working on that. But let's talk about I know we're running real close on time here, but a case study, Comcast, we all are familiar with Comcast, but they are in 34 states. They've got a lot of property, including, did you know that every remote, every set-top box is taxable? And so, which means that they're just all over the place. And so many jurisdictions, many complexities. And so to manage that, it was a very manual process, having many professionals to do that, and really having a lot of disaggregate systems where we were talking about earlier, spreadsheets for certain things and other filing systems for filing the returns and other systems for paying the tax bills, but bringing all that into under one roof with our Avalara property tax application allows them to essentially all documents that come in are quickly digitized and extracted, and so they don't have to worry about stacks of tax bills or blank returns or notices on their desks. They're all kind of automated, structured, and nice even format. They can make decisions quick. They can file their returns quick, and they can also pay their tax bills all electronically. They actually one-click pay the tax bill because we integrate with the payment service to make everything kind of paperless and easy. So that allowed them to really focus a lot on those complex valuation issues and spend a lot of time on reducing their assessments. And so their staff is quite a bit more efficient than what they have been historically. So I guess one more poll question, Jasmine, if we have time for that.
Absolutely, yes. It's going to be rapid fire here since we're wrapping up on time. But what is your biggest concern heading into the next property tax cycle? You can select multiple here. We'll give you a second to choose, and we won't be able to get to Q&A today, but if you have any questions, still feel free to submit those and we'll be sure to follow up with you afterwards. So I'm going to go ahead and push these results and then hand it back over to you, Carl.
Yeah, interesting. I think we talked about a lot of companies feeling like they're compliant, but I think that there are situations where you're running out of time. You're either overpaying because you just don't have time, or you don't have the knowledge to understand that you are overpayment, as well as penalties, right? So it's a complex process, and I appreciate those results, and that's what we're seeing with all of our customers. So next steps, essentially, the options are kind of identify potential overpayments in your assessments, as we talked about. Compare your current approach to the modern approach that we talked to. And if you want to see an AI-driven property tax in action, you can certainly let us know. And here's a way to do that in a quick, easy poll. So, Jasmine, what's next?
Yeah, I'm going to leave this up for the duration of our our time here. I'll just go ahead and encourage the audience to register for some upcoming webinars. We have that URL located, but it's at avalara.com/webinars. We have some very relevant webinars coming up along this topic. And so please join us there. And if you did qualify for CPE credit today, you should be able to download that certification right here in the console. And you can also access that certification in your follow-up email. So thank you so much to our speakers today, and for everybody in attendance. I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks so much.